Okay. Happy Tuesday. That's quite a sign over there. Okay, a couple of items for all of you at the top. President Biden promised to reach across the aisle and deliver results for families across the country. And today, on the president's 203rd day in office, in case all of you weren't counting, 19 Republican senators joined the Democratic caucus to pass historic infrastructure legislation. The most important piece of this to the president is not the bipartisan piece, which of course he is pleased to see the opportunity to work with Democrats and Republicans, but that this will deliver huge benefits, millions of jobs to the American people. It will deliver clean drinking water and high-speed internet to every household in the country. It will help us tackle the climate crisis by electrifying school buses, building electric vehicle chargers across the station, upgrade our power infrastructure to be resilient against natural disasters, and it will rebuild roads and bridges and modernize America's airports, rail, and public transit systems, something that even our Secretary of State talked about yesterday in terms of its benefits to our competitiveness around the world. And this legislation will create benefits in communities across the country for decades to come. So we are pleased to see the progress. Looking forward to the next step. Also wanted to note for all of you that as a part of our ongoing efforts to boost vaccinations, meet people where they are with information about the vaccines, today Dr. Fauci is doing 5 Q&A conversations on Instagram and TikTok with millennial, mom influencers and Gen Z influencers. Throughout the month of August, Dr. Fauci will do weekly conversations and questions with notable influencers that aim to reach specific audiences we are looking to boost vaccination rates with, alongside many of the other specific efforts we are already doing, including amplifying local Black doctors across the country and local media interviews and partnerships with PTA organizations and doctors to incorporate vaccination information into sports physicals. So continuing to take a range of steps. Finally, since we didn't do a briefing yesterday, I wanted to take a quick second and address the IPCC from yesterday, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report that came out. What the IPCC told us is what President Biden has believed all along. Climate change is an urgent threat that requires bold action. Since his first day in office, President Biden has taken unprecedented, bold, and swift action to tackle the climate crisis. He rejoined the Paris Climate Agreement on day one, restoring leadership at home and on the world stage. The United States hosted a first ever U.S. Global Climate Summit for 40 world leaders to encourage strong and ambitious commitments to reduce their emissions. We committed to bold, ambitious climate goals, including reducing emissions from 2005 levels by 50 to 52% in 2030, producing 100% clean clean electricity by 2035, and reaching net zero emissions economy-wide by 2050. And just last week, the president announced steps to drive American leadership forward on clean cars and trucks. Finally, it doesn't stop there. Obviously, a step forward with the bipartisan infrastructure deal today, and his Build Back Better agenda will set America on the path towards clean energy, clean cars, clean buildings, and cleaner industry, all in a way that will grow our economy, create jobs, and enhance America's competitiveness. Darlene.
Thank you. On the other news of the day, what is the president's reaction to Governor Cuomo stepping down? And did anyone in the White House reach out to the governor and sort of nudge him to leave office?
Well, first, let me say the president made clear his views last week, and those stand. Our view is that this is a story about these courageous women who came forward, told their stories, shared their stories, and an investigation overseen by the Attorney General that, of course, concluded today in an outcome that the President called for just last week. I know a number of you have asked whether the President has talked to the Attorney General since this report came out. The answer is no. Whether we had a heads up on this announcement today, the answer is no.
You said the Attorney General. In New York.
I'm sorry, the Governor. Yes.
Can I finish?
Yes. Thank you for that clarification.
Any plans for the president to now reach out to talk to the governor now that he has announced that he's going to step down?
No plans that I'm aware of, no.
How ticked is the White House that he chose today, Infrastructure Day, to make the announcement?
Well, Darlene, what I can assure you of is that the American people across the country who are commuting back and forth to work, driving their kids to camp, worried about whether their kids have access to clean drinking water, focused on whether schools are going to have the resources they need, are most focused on the fact that 69 members of the Senate, 19 Republicans joined the Democratic caucus to take an important step forward. That's my bet in terms of what people are talking about at home. Go ahead.
You guys, on Afghanistan, we're still a few weeks away from the president's initial deadline to withdraw all U.S. troops from the country. We're now seeing so many cities fall to the Taliban. Is the president frustrated by this at all?
Well, the president, there are difficult choices every commander-in-chief has to make on behalf of the American people. And President Biden was very clear when he delivered his speech in May, announcing his decision that after 20 years at war, it's time for American troops to get home. I would also note and just hearken back to some of the points he made when he made that speech that were the drivers for his decision. We went to Afghanistan to deliver justice to those who attacked us on September 11th, to disrupt terrorists seeking to use Afghanistan as a safe haven, to attack the United States. We achieved those objectives some years ago. We judge the threat now against our homeland, which is his responsibility as commander-in-chief to focus on, as being one where the threat emanates from outside of Afghanistan. So, and the president also at the time, just to go back to your original question, he asked for a clear assessment, for a review from his team on what the possible implications could be. He asked them not to sugarcoat that. He asked them to lay out specifically and clearly what the consequences could be. I'll also note that we have provided a great deal and a range of assistance to the Afghan National Security Defense Forces, and also proposed a significant amount of funding in the FY 2022 budget request for $3.3 billion for the Afghan security forces. So he made a decision as commander-in-chief. Those are difficult decisions to make. He did it because after 20 years at war, it's time to bring our troops, our men and women home, and we will continue to be partners and supporters of their efforts on the ground.
With that assistance, it's seeing what's happening now. Do you overestimate at all the Afghans' ability to hold off the Taliban, though?
Well, ultimately, there have been assessments by members of the intelligence community, members of our national security team that have been made public. And they're the appropriate entities to, of course, make those assessments. But ultimately, our view is that the Afghan National Security Defense Forces has the equipment, numbers, and training to fight back, which will strengthen their position at the negotiating table. We believe there's a political process. That's the only process that will successfully bring peace and stability to Afghanistan.
One more on the vaccine, sorry. Secretary Austin says that he will make the request of the president's request for the president to approve a waiver for the vaccine to be mandatory in the military no later than mid-September, unless the FDA approves the vaccine before then. But given that the consensus is that the vaccines are safe and effective, why not move forward with that waiver right away?
Well, one, the president and secretary agree, and they have agreed, that making sure our military is safe and prepared is of utmost importance. And given the size and scale and geographic dispersal of the Department of Defense's workforce, it was determined that DoD would need some time to develop an implementation plan. That's exactly what we're talking about with the September 15th timeline, to make sure it's most feasible for fully vaccinating their personnel. There are a range of steps that are components of an implementation plan. Obviously, if the Delta variant becomes worse and we need to move things forward, we have that option. If the if FDA, which we don't control their timeline, as you all well know, is not approve a vaccine by then, that timeline stands. But this was a timeline put in place so we would have the necessary resources and available time to make this happen with the diverse military personnel around the world. Go ahead.
I know the president isn't weighing in on legislative sequencing at this point in time, but there was a letter sent by a group of House Democratic moderates, basically calling on Speaker Pelosi to take up the infrastructure bill now, saying the president couldn't have time for a delay. What is the president's message to those moderates regarding sequencing, but who are right now feel like this needs to move immediately?
His message is that he remains committed to passing each of these pieces of legislation on dual tracks, that he is going to work in lockstep with Speaker Pelosi, just as we have worked in lockstep with Leader Schumer successfully over the last several weeks and months to get this done. And he is confident in the leadership, the strategic approach of Speaker Pelosi, and looks forward to being her partner in the weeks ahead.
And then one